Hello, I hold the office for Registrar for the United States of America, and I am also the elected keeper of the Great Registry. I am honored to present to you our journey to independence from the government of the United States of America. First of all, we need to have introductions. We are affirmed American nationals. In this instructional PowerPoint presentation, we are going to discuss how that happened. What does it mean to call yourself an American national? If you would like to know the answer to that question, please move forward to the next page. First, we have to create some rules so that we can all communicate with each other. When we reference lowercase federal, state, and local government, we are referencing the United Nations or a foreign charitable trust within those entities. When we reference upper lowercase state of, we are referencing original upper lowercase state. When we reference lowercase county and township, we are referencing the original Confederacy of 1781. When we are referencing upper lowercase county, we are referencing a municipality, usually a corporation. When we reference upper lowercase American, lowercase national, that is the United States of 1789. When we reference upper lowercase American, upper lowercase national, we are referencing a national for the Confederacy of 1781. Okay, now that we have some basic rules in mind, we can move on. When the independent government began, there was major turmoil. Most people have grown up in that turmoil, so most will not know what peace feels like. The country has never been settled. There is constant turmoil every day of your life. Most people at the age of 50 have witnessed at least 5 major wars. Isn't it time we have some peace? The only way to achieve peace is to find the source of the turmoil. That is where our journey begins. Entities are a great place to start because they are the cover of all books. In other words, France is the cover for the French book of history. If you will notice, France has never changed the name of their country, nor England, nor Egypt. Everyone knows those countries. Those countries are under the same name and writing in the same book. Even though those countries experience turmoil, when the turmoil ends, the country remains the same and writes in the same book. Those countries are settled. Please note, for this slide, you will notice a lowercase t and uppercase T in red letters. When you see the lowercase t, the proper pronunciation is the. When you see the uppercase T, the proper pronunciation is the. Let's continue. Now let's look at North America. The first name of the country was the 13 United States of America. Then in the same document it reads, the United States of America, then the United States of America. Then in the middle of that, someone else created the United States of America. Then after the Civil War, United States, then United States of America, Inc. That is 6 different entities in a 200-year period. Does anyone know how that happened? And don't forget, people are also calling it the U.S. today. Citizenship is all messed up and confusing. No one knows if they are a resident or what that even means. They think they are U.S. citizens with residency in a state. What happened to state citizen status? Today's American nationals are nation builders. We build and settle nations and states. We are a small group of people that think tanks to solve problems. We have witnessed many people so confused about how to get the tyrant off of their backs in America. The tyrant that has the inability to settle anything because the tyrant is the author of turmoil and simply does not know how to settle disputes or conflicts. The turmoil is not your fault. However, you do have the ability to take liability for the turmoil and solve the conflict. The first thing that the American nationals had to do was to sign the Declaration of Independence, then sign the Articles of Confederation of 1781. Claim it, issue notice, wait 90 days for any objections. There were no objections, which gave us the authority to revamp that original government. Why the Confederacy of 1781? It is because it was the only government that was voted in by all 13 independent states. Plus, there were some other reasons that we will visit later on in this journey. Once we were parties to those agreements, the Declaration of Independence gave us the authority to change government. Quote, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. End quote. Most will ask, what about your current obligations to the government in place today? The answers to that question is simple. Whenever a government becomes destructive, we have the right to change its form or abolish it. However, we did not abolish that government. We simply went back in time to find out why the Confederacy of 1781 was abolished and changed. The answers were not what we expected. The Confederacy of 1781 was not destructive, nor did it take any rights from the states. The power to tax was left to the states. We could not find any reason why that government was abolished or changed into another form. What we did find will astonish. We found some entity discrepancies. Whenever someone changes an entity, in order for the former entity to retain the rights of the present entity, it shall read as amended. This means that when the first entity, the 13 United States of America, was created, and in the same document it read, the United States of America, it should have read, the United States of America as amended. Then in the Articles of Confederation of 1781, it should have read, the style of this Confederacy shall be, the 13 United States of America, as amended to, the United States of America, as amended to, the United States of America. Now, the Confederacy has a Declaration of Independence, and the Declaration of Independence is connected to a government. This discrepancy was corrected by current American nationals in the Articles of Confederation as amended. The second issue was found in 1783 in the Treaty of Paris. Quote, it having pleased the divine providence to dispose the hearts of the most serene and most potent Prince George III, by the grace of God, King of Great Britain, France, and Ireland, Defender of the Faith, Duke of Brunswick and Luneburg, Arch-Treasurer and Prince-Elector of the Holy Roman Empire, etc., and of the United States of America. End quote. Where did this new country come from that made the enemy of the Confederacy its arch-treasurer? The answer is, it didn't. King George was creating his own government and placed himself as arch-treasurer. The United States of America instead of the United States of America. According to the records, the entity, the United States of America, did not exist for another 6 years until 1789. King George made a peace treaty with his own government, called the federal government today. The Confederacy went abandoned, and instead of upper lowercase states, the Crown created lowercase states in what they called a new lowercase union, not the original upper lowercase union, within the Confederacy of 1781. Then the same king started naturalizing people as citizens of the United States. You had to be white, though, which caused competition with the states for citizens, where all could be citizens no matter your race. The same king had Alexander Hamilton set up the Bank of New York in 1784, a year after the Treaty of Paris. Then the same king claimed the same territory that belonged to the Confederacy and started monetizing it. Keep in mind that it was the Masons of the Masonic Lodge that started this so-called new government for King George. The same entity still belongs to the Vatican and the Crown today. The monarch of England just keeps treating with itself. Here is how the Grand Constitutional Convention, Masons call everything grand, like grand jury today, played out. The Masons came together in the name of their king and the Vatican, with the bait of amending the Federation. Then 2 days into the convention, switched to 3 different constitutions, which back then was treason. Then when all was said and done, George Washington signed the 1789 Constitution and had 39 witness it. No one else has ever signed the 1789 Constitution, so no one else is a party to it other than George Washington and his family, meaning his cousin King George. Lo and behold, that the entity in that 1789 Constitution was the United States of America. Every president after George Washington has been a relative of a monarch and a Mason of the Masonic Lodge. That is no accident. Until 4 years ago, the Confederacy of 1781 and the states remained abandoned until reclaimed. The way that was done is a long story. However, the end result is that the American nationals had to declare exile from being subjects of the Crown and the charitable trust of the Vatican called Sesti Cavi Trust. The Sesti Cavi Trust was placed in the school districts that were created by the Northwest Ordinance in 1787 by the United States in Congress assembled. The Sesti Cavi Trust, otherwise known as a charitable trust or a 501c3 as it is known today, renders the people either infants of the Crown or beyond the seas fighting a war. Either way, the trust is pure evil in its intent because it robs the people of handling their own affairs by being classified an infant from cradle to grave or absent from their own estate, which is being monetized through power of attorney by the Crown. The Crown is the financial center. The Vatican claimed to be the world church, and the United States of America in the form of the U.S. is the world military. The Pentagon is a sovereign entity on the world stage and is managing the 50 states of the Crown and the Vatican. The only way out is to declare exile and proclaim the existence of a new nation with metes and bounds, or the original abandoned government called the United States of America. In order to bind yourself within that nation is through an oath or affirmation to that nation, which is called the set-apart spirit in the scriptures. The nation has to have a general post office and a host of other offices that the original Articles of Confederation did not have, so it was revamped, also known as rewritten. The reason why the American nationals did not go to one of the states or start out there was because if we were subjects of the Crown, we were foreign to our original government. We also did not have any evidence that we were citizens of the United States, which we would still be foreign to the Confederacy. Then the only way into the original independent states was through the United States of America, because that was an intergovernmental organization of independent states that had the authority to naturalize. According to the Northwest Ordinance, we need 50,000 American nationals to settle a state. We are nowhere near that many, so we remain American nationals until we have the numbers we need to settle a state. The Perpetual Union is now a union of American nationals. When we have the numbers, the union can be extended from the people to the states once again. Power of attorney is a very powerful weapon of a monarch. So after the Civil War, the General Postal Union Treaty of 1874 was formed by the monarchs of Europe. The entity on the treaty was the United States of America. However, the entity that signed the treaty was the United States of America. Therefore, power of attorney was claimed over the original Confederacy, which is a violation of the law of nations. This was done 100 years later, so the current American nationals, through their United States in Congress assembled, withdrew from that treaty. So now the entity, the United States of America, is a sovereign and independent nation. Let's revisit the actions of George Washington. Here is a quote from the original Articles of Confederation in Article 13. Every state shall abide by the determination of the United States in Congress assembled, on all questions which by the Confederation are submitted to them, and the articles of this Confederation shall be inviolably observed by every state, and the Union shall be perpetual, nor shall any alteration at any time hereafter be made in any of them, unless such alteration be agreed to in a Congress of the United States, and be afterwards confirmed by the legislatures of every state. End quote. George Washington never went back to the United States in Congress assembled to get the amendments passed, nor did all of the delegates sign the Constitution. So George Washington broke chain of title to all property for a bribe of having supreme executive authority over the King's government. That means the United States of America still retains all title to property within its own survey and sphere. The only peace agreement by and between the Confederacy and the United States of America is the Bill of Rights, wherein the Confederacy and the democracy, aristocracy, cannot charge crimes against each other unless by the terms and conditions of the Bill of Rights in an Article 3, Section 2 court. However, if you hide the original government from the people and declare those people infants or beyond the sea, you don't really have to uphold the Bill of Rights peace agreement, and you can prosecute and speak for those people anytime you desire. However, the truth always comes to light no matter how deep you burn. The basic weapons used against you are simple in nature and deadly to the conscience if you are not familiar with them. Infant. This is the weapon of the crown. If you do not comply with the bank regulations, you are rendered an infant, unable to handle your own affairs. Beyond the seas. This is the weapon of the Vatican. This assures that the charitable trust keeps producing revenue for the church by rendering you a leaseor, renter of your own estate. Belligerent. This is rendered against you if you do not comply with the orders of the court or from some other charitable trust authority. This classification is under military law. The point of all this is that these three entities have no business in your affairs in the first place. If there were no interference from these entities, they would have never been needed. Instead, the American nationals have to fix their torts and settle the country as a whole, so the next generation may be educated and live with peace. Believe it or not, the New World Order group is a secular group of people from the original called Novus Ordo Seclorum. The original group of men had righteous intentions when they adopted that phrase. It was originally based on this statement, quote, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." End quote. These men determined that if everyone had the authority of the order, like a judge today exercises in a courtroom, then no one could ever oppress another. This means that if you are given an order, you must comply with the order to stay in honor. However, once the order is complied with, You can now issue your own order against the same to either reverse the previous order or issue an order of your own. It was believed that this concept would create equality among all men, and the one who was lying would be exposed with this process. They called it truth in commerce. Truth would always be uncovered in the end of the process. Today, if you do not comply with an order from a police officer, they can kill you and be exonerated from any wrongdoing. It happens all of the time. Not complying with an order to present a driver's license is a violation of the order. The statute is a second witness or the first order backing up the police officer's order. So two witnesses in whatever form are present at trial. There is a fine associated with the non-compliance of an order. This is why people can assemble and reverse orders from the state legislature at any time. Otherwise, it is considered consent of the governed. However, the people must convene from their jurisdiction and venue. The jurisdiction is called a retained right, and the venue is of, by, and for the people, or individuals can do it the hard way and issue their own orders as individuals under individual right, which is recognized by the NWO. Although American nationals are well aware of this custom, tradition, and belief, American nationals do not practice the NWO belief. However, they are well aware of how to defend against such customs, determined that it does not enter into the jurisdiction and venue of the United States of America. The order concept is practiced in translation when dealing in foreign affairs. However, writs are written in our courts based on what is right or wrong. American nationals do not subject each other. However, we shall submit to what is right and the truth. This practice forces American nationals to grow up and conduct themselves as being a part of the age of majority. Liability is a major part of our culture and national character. The statement, "The truth hurts," is deeply embedded in our culture. No matter what the consequences, the truth must be told, and all American nationals shall abide by the truth. Our children are never abused, nor are our wives. Men and women are equal, no matter what, and are with equal suffrage. This means that if a woman murders, they suffer the same consequences as a man. If a rape occurs, the woman is forced to participate in the punishment of the rapist. If not, she has bore false witness and will suffer the consequences. The United States of America is structured as a bottom-up government. This means that whatever act is passed by the United States in Congress assembled, the wording and the act came from the American nationals in assembly. No office holder can do anything outside its creation and mandate unless the people issue a petition. Therefore, if something is not accomplished, it is the liability of the American nationals to provide their government with the means to fulfill their desires. So if there are any complaints by the American nationals, it is their liability to fix the problem. All problems are resolved by petition in assembly. If there are any objections to the petition, no objection can be made unless accompanied with a solution to the objection. Therefore, you will always have a unanimous decision. If a whole act is objected to, then a whole new act can be petitioned that is proper and right. Everyone knows what is right or wrong. We are all men and women and can act accordingly with honor towards each other. We all have the same liabilities and want the same things in the majority of issues. No need to fight each other for the same thing. The American nationals took a survey with 50 people over a 6-month period and found the following. No one had a last will and testament from any of their relatives. The only papers they had to identify themselves was a driver's license to do banking and commerce and a birth certificate with their mother and father's name on the security. 9 out of 10 knew their grandparents' names. 1 out of 10 knew their great-grandparents' names. No one had any information past the great-grandparents. The conclusion was that the history of a people had either been stolen or destroyed without their knowledge. The facts of their history had been changed to protect the guilty or the thieves. The fourth article of the peace treaty by and between the Federalist, Loyalist, and the Confederacy had been breached. This statement in the Bill of Rights covers family history, last wills and testaments, and the like. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects. That has definitely been ignored. How can a country have a national character if the people do not know themselves or where they came from, and where is their estate? The answer is, there is no estate. It was stolen along with all forms of identity, all estate papers, and all effects have simply disappeared. So we must start over, and therein is the plan. International law and the law of nations are the guidelines of this plan. Right now, we must assume that everyone is a foreigner to their original government as the American nationals did. Further, the United States of America was commissioned to handle all foreign affairs of the independent states. You cannot start from the state, county, or township level to settle the nations as a whole. The American nationals have already made that mistake. Step 1. Go to this site, http://www.readtheory.org/. Click the Increase the Level of Reading Comprehension link. Just take the quick placement quiz. Click the Start Reading button and take a print screen with the results after you are finished. Registration is not required with that site. The print screen is the PRTSC button on your computer. Press that button on the results page and then paste it to a Microsoft Word doc by opening a new Word document. Right-click and select Paste. Save document. Email the results with the Microsoft doc that you just saved attached to the email along with your name and email or other contact information to registrar@generalpost.org. The American nationals have to know that you comprehend what you are doing and are able to read and comprehend contracts and agreements. It is nothing personal. Step 2. Complete Resident Declaration online form. http://reignoftheheavens.org/page_ID=246. Resident declarations are absolute. So when this form is filled out, you have declared residency from being a resident under the rule of the monarchs of Europe in one of their states. Example, CA, FL, MO, GA. These states do not have a constitution. They offer no protections nor rights. You are simply a subject of the monarchs of Europe. There is a big difference between, for example, state of Florida, Florida, and FL. Technically, these are three different states, and FL and Florida is without a constitution nor metes and bounds. The state of Florida does have a state constitution. However, no one is contracted with the state of Florida. Birth certificate verifies resident alien status in the district. Driver's license, ID, scripture record, or affidavit of identity. Background check or signing a verification of good standing. Declaration of exile and proclamation. Step 3. American National Oath or Affirmation. Proof of life and proof of claim of children's certificate replaces birth certificate. Online ID system with Great Registry. Clear up any outstanding issues. Family tree, research family origins. Settlement of estate. Test on government structure. Once we have 50,000 affirmed American nationals in one state, divided into townships, then the state can be settled as an independent state. Each township within each county is its own independent body politic under the umbrella of the United States of America. Each township has the authority to accept or reject any act of the United States and Congress assembled that it chooses. That way, one township that needs an act that is not needed by another township is not subjecting each other, which will cause violent conflicts. The acts are there to provide a remedy for the townships if needed. However, once the state legislature is settled, then the United States of America can back away to give the state room to grow and develop into a fully functioning independent state with its own currency. The process is quite simple. However, people are going to be asking questions about land, property, automobiles, etc. Unfortunately, the Confederacy did not have any solutions to these questions, saving one. In the Northwest Ordinance, the United States and Congress assembled had the authority to dispose of property. Therefore, title was vested with the United States of America. Therefore, all American nationals shall enjoy that same right. However, when the states are settled, then the people can vest limited title through easements to their estates, making sure that the people cannot be taxed when owning property. The United States of America has claim on all rural free delivery routes across the nations. It is a right for American nationals to travel that survey. However, the American national shall take full financial liability for their actions in the case of accident. There are a few ways to accomplish that goal, which will be discussed in the new currency series, which will be forthcoming soon. During the process, please keep in mind that we have no ill will towards the monarchs of Europe. However, the obligations contracted are the responsibility of their government. No affirmed American national will be held surety for the central bank obligations, past, present, or future. This chapter of our journey is coming to an end. The next chapter will be about full title currency and how that secures the future of a nation. The strength of your honor is what makes a nation. Our journey to independence, from the government of the United States of America by the Assembly for the United States of America. Welcome home.